Hi, I'm Lauren Hanley, and I'm a behavioral consultant with Brett DiNovi Associates. Today, we're going to continue our introduction into compound schedules of reinforcement by reviewing the next two types. To review from our last video, compound schedules of reinforcement refer to any time a behavior analyst combines schedules of continuous reinforcement, intermittent reinforcement, differential reinforcement of various rates of responding, and extinction. In 1957, Ferster and Skinner identified that elements from compound schedules can occur either successively or simultaneously, with or without discriminative stimuli, and as a reinforcement contingency independently, or a contingency formed by the combination of all elements. So when we're talking about compound schedules, it makes it a lot easier when you group them based on what's similar as opposed to what's different. Concurrent schedules in our last video were a little bit different because they kind of stand alone. They're talking about reinforcement schedules that apply to two or more behaviors of interest. For today, we're really going to start grouping them based on commonalities. So for the two types of compound schedules that we're going to be reviewing today, we're going to talk about two schedules that require discriminative stimuli. That means they have a stimulus that signals that a particular contingency is in effect. So the two types that use a discriminative stimuli are multiple schedules and chain schedules. With a multiple schedule of reinforcement, that's when you have two or more basic schedules of reinforcement that are running successively and independently of one another, and they happen in a random or alternating order. As we know, different schedules of reinforcement result in different rates of responding. So for example, a fixed interval schedule is going to result in a scallop effect, where right after reinforcement, you're going to see a decrease in responding. As the interval goes on, you're going to see a gradual increase, with responding peaking right before the next reinforcer is delivered. One of the really cool things about multiple schedules, because they're combining these basic schedules of reinforcement, is that research shows that behavior still follows the same pattern in a multiple schedule as it would if behavior was being targeted just by a basic schedule by itself. In a study conducted by Orlando and Sydney in 1960, it demonstrated exactly this. Basically, what they found was that in multiple schedules, behavior still followed most of the same laws that it does when basic schedules are followed. So in this study, they found that the response rate was higher when there were lower ratios, longer intervals, and in variable rather than fixed schedules of reinforcement, which is the same thing you would see in a basic schedule of reinforcement. One difference that they noted is that the scallop effect and the post-reinforcement pause that you see in basic schedules aren't as predictable in a multiple schedule. Otherwise, behavior is following all the same laws and patterns as it would in a basic schedule as it does in a multiple schedule. A real-life example of a multiple schedule might be something like this. When you're looking at academic skills, a student may use math facts or respond to math facts with a teacher in a whole group setting, as well as with a tutor one-to-one. So in this situation, you're going to have two different schedules of reinforcement, basic schedules of reinforcement, running successively and independently in random order. You're not always going to have a teacher and then a tutor, or a tutor and then a teacher. You're going to alternate them, right? So in a situation like that, the tutor and the teacher are acting as discriminative stimuli to let the student know what reinforcement contingency is in effect. They're probably both ratio schedules, variable ratio schedules, where not every response is being reinforced by the adult. In the situation with the tutor, there are probably much higher levels of reinforcement than the whole group setting with the teacher. So this would be a real-life example of multiple schedules of reinforcement. The second schedule of reinforcement within this category is a chain schedule. Similar to the multiple schedule, a chain schedule still needs a discriminative stimulus that indicates when each element or each contingency is occurring. So a chain schedule is going to be different than a multiple schedule in three different ways. Number one, the schedules always occur in a specific order, so they don't alternate or rotate the same way that it does in a multiple schedule. Number two, there may be one or more behaviors of interest. So whereas in a multiple schedule, you're typically dealing with one response class, a chain schedule, each element might require a different behavioral response, which is a big difference from the multiple schedule. Number three, and probably most importantly, is in a chain schedule, the conditioned reinforcer for the first element acts as the discriminative stimulus for the second element, meaning one step is always the SD for the step that comes after it. So real-life examples of this are washing your hands or changing a tire. Each step is going to have a conditioned reinforcer that acts as the discriminative stimulus for the step that follows it. According to Cooper, Heron, and Heward, chain schedules are ones that are utilized by behavior analysts very, very often to be able to teach not only new skills, but to be able to teach more complex behavior chains. So to this point in our series on compound schedules of reinforcement, we've covered concurrent schedules, multiple schedules, and chain schedules. Our next video of this series, we're gonna cover schedules that don't require a discriminative stimulus in order to operate. So we're gonna cover mixed schedules and tandem schedules. In the meantime, feel free to put any questions and comments in the section below.